Hey guys, welcome back to the Court of Random Opinion. My name is Lauren Neidigh. If you were just with me, God, like maybe half an hour ago, maybe less than that, I'm not sure. We were reading over the ruling so the judge had made a ruling on Blake Lively's subpoena to Bryan Freedman's law firm, which he pretty much quashed the whole thing. Some of it was without prejudice, so they could revisit that issue. The only thing that he did not quash was requests 1 through 4, which they had already answered to in open court, which was basically saying there are no agreements or payments to content creators, influencers, etc., to be produced. So there's no reason to quash it. There's just nothing to produce. All right. So she has now asked for sanctions against Bryan Freedman for a number of reasons. We're not going to read through this document word for word, but I will go over it with you guys. As I was saying earlier, I'm out of town for this week, so I'm not going to be on camera as much, so you won't see me, but I'll pull up the document here and we'll go over it. One sec. That's not what I meant to do. Yep. Okay. Plaintiff Blake Lively respectfully moves to impose sanctions on defendant's counsel Bryan Freedman for repeatedly violating Rule 3.6 of the New York Rules of Professional Conduct, which this court adopted as an order applicable to all counsel of record and susceptible to punishment pursuant to Rule 16F of FRCP or the court's inherent power. So they had a conference about this way back in like February 3rd because she was upset about some stuff that he was saying in the media. And can I get sanctions? No. One sec. Sorry. Because he was talking about her in the media. She didn't like what he was saying. She said this is going to like prejudice a jury, a potential jury. And so she really wanted him not to be able to say anything at all, which of course the judge did not, you can't really do that unless there's a really, really good reason. I've never seen anything like that. So the judge did not go for that, but he did say, you need to be careful what you're saying. And of course, Bryan Freedman did continue to make appearances. He did continue to talk about the case. She's going to argue that he should be sanctioned for the stuff that he said. But he, as we know, has not really said much or appeared on any sort of channel or show or whatever in like a couple months now, I think, at least since the ruling where Justin Baldoni, the Wayfair parties, had their case largely dismissed. Not because they were incorrect or because what they said was untrue, but because there were pleading deficiencies and because Blake Lively's statements were largely protected by litigation privilege in the New York Times as well. So let me get some water real quick. Okay, so a lot of this is going to be stuff that we have seen before, but they're basically going to lay it out for us. Like, here's when he went on this show and what he said. Here's when he went on this show and what he said. So we'll see what they have to say here. Give me 1 second. Let me make sure this is working. Okay. I don't even have that plugged in. 1 sec. How does this sound? The microphone's kind of crap on my end. Hopefully it's all right. It can't be much better. It's a little echoey. But unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to fix it. Maybe if I... Not underwater like with Omar that one time. Okay, well, the sound's not going to be great, guys, but it is what it is for now. Okay. Let's see. Almost immediately following the court's order, and that was in the February 3rd conference, Mr. Freedman began violating it and has continued to expose the public and the jury pool to his biased and inflammatory pretrial indictments of Ms. Lively's character, credibility, and reputation. The lack of support for his statements appears irrelevant to Mr. Freedman because, as he personally explained to this court on February 3rd, in these kinds of cases, once someone says something, it becomes fact. Mr. Freedman's pattern of prohibited attorney statements warrants the imposition of sanctions. Despite his enthusiastic endorsement of the application of New York Rule 3.6 to this case during the February 3rd hearing, Mr. Freedman resumed publicly slandering Ms. Lively's character and credibility within a matter of days. Well, is it slander if it's true? Just saying. Including in friendly interviews conducted by his former clients. On February 5th, Mr. Freedman appeared on TMZ to discuss the court's order and whether Ms. Lively and her husband, Ryan Reynolds, would try to avoid a deposition, and stated that he hoped he would not get sanctioned as a result of the interview, but that he was sure you guys will indemnify me, so it will be good. So that was clearly said in jest, in my opinion. So that's, again, once again, like some of this stuff, I'm like, I wish you wouldn't have said that because of who you're dealing with. But any reasonable person is going to like really understand that was a joke, you know, like with the Madison Square Garden thing. Nobody thought he was fucking serious about that. And then she's like, he's threatening me. No, that's not a threat. All right. It was a joke, and you might say it's in poor taste. Some people might not find it humorous at all, but it was clearly not serious. It was not meant to be taken seriously. So, all right. In the following weeks, Mr. Freedman has repeatedly made public statements attacking Ms. Lively's character, credibility, and reputation, as if she's not doing a well enough job of that on her own. Stating, for example, that she is afraid of the truth, has been testifying since the moment she auditioned for this part, is obviously uncomfortable with the truth, and is a privileged elite who has been abusing our legal system to cover up for the self-concocted disaster that she initiated. Again, I don't see anything untrue here, but that is a matter of opinion. During one interview conducted by his former client, Megyn Kelly, Mr. Freedman made numerous disparaging comments about Ms. Lively, while Ms. Kelly referred to Ms. Lively as a bitch. So what actually happened there, as we know, because I showed you guys the clip recently, is that Megyn Kelly was discussing sort of the public perception of Blake Lively at this point, when all the interviews and clips of her own behavior that are very real and not at all fabricated came out. And people started to see how she treats other people and how she acts, especially pertaining to the domestic violence subject that she was, you know, supposed to kind of know how to talk about because of the film that she was promoting. She acted like a jerk. And so Megyn Kelly said she is kind of seen as a bitch. I don't think Megyn Kelly, and from what I remember, Megyn Kelly didn't say Blake Lively is a bitch, but she was talking about how the public sees Blake Lively at this point in time. All right. Through his comments, Mr. Freedman has sought to advance 4 themes designed to attack Ms. Lively's credibility, character, and reputation. Ms. Lively, 1, is a liar who is afraid of the truth and cannot be believed. 2, is a person of bad character, namely a privileged elite and bully who is manipulating the justice system, in contrast to Mr. Baldoni, who Mr. Freedman proclaims is a person of good character who should be credited and supported. Okay. As for number 2, I'm not sure what this part about Mr. Baldoni has to do with anything, because he is supposed to defend his client. So that's really neither here nor there. As far as the privileged elite and bully aspect of it, and the manipulating of the justice system particularly, I have no sympathy for her because I agree with everything that he's saying. And that's because of what I've seen and read and heard, not because of what Bryan Freedman said on a podcast. In fact, I didn't really watch most of his media appearances. I saw clips here or there, but they did not really influence my opinion so much as what was said in court and how her story didn't add up. So, sorry, there's a baby crying in the background. Hopefully you guys can't hear that. Okay. 1 second. All right. 3, manufactured her sexual harassment and retaliation claims because, in Mr. Freedman's view, she could not accept the public's organic response disapproving of her, ignoring, of course, that Ms. Lively's retaliation claims are based on his client's own written words and dozens of texts and emails. So right here, I want to point this out because this is important. Whenever it comes to the sexual harassment, they always deflect. So she says manufactured her sexual harassment claims. And then they go back to this retaliation thing here, where they're saying that, which obviously is not proven at all. There's been no proven retaliation, saying ignoring that Ms. Lively's retaliation claims are based on his client's own written words and dozens of texts and emails. So we're, again, kind of ignoring the sexual harassment thing, which is thrown in here for shock value, in my opinion. I don't think she has very strong claims of sexual harassment at all. I think it's bullshit, and I do not appreciate that. All right. And 4, cannot be believed because her husband, Mr. Reynolds, made an appearance on Saturday Night Live during the course of the litigation. All of this is improper and sanctionable. Rule 3.6 forbids Mr. Freedman's unrelenting campaign attacking the character, credibility, and reputation of both Ms. Lively and Mr. Reynolds. Now is the appropriate moment for this court to ensure compliance with Rule 3.6. The parties have just completed the first deposition in this case, and Mr. Freedman wasted no time in attempting a public relations stunt, namely by filing the entire pre-reviewed and pre-corrected transcript on this court's docket in a transparent ploy to make the deposition a public event. Okay, well, that's a little bit of an exaggeration. As far as the transcript, she can move to continue sealing. Now, I've heard people say there was no reason to include the full transcripts, and honestly, I don't know. I don't know how common that is. I don't know if that's like not a normal thing to do. So I don't really want to comment too much on whether or not they should have included the transcript. But the fact of the matter is, none of us have seen what's in that transcript. It's redacted. It's completely redacted. The statement that they included in their letter, and as far as the transcript goes, you can't see it at all. The public cannot see it at all. So again, this is a huge exaggeration in my opinion. Now, if somebody who, works in these types of cases says, no, this is not a normal thing and they should not have attached the entire transcript, I'm open to that. I'm not going to say like that was definitely the right thing to do. You know what I mean? I think I would rather hear from somebody who knows what they're talking about than to really comment too much on that. Which is why I didn't really say much about the motion to strike earlier, because I'm like, I don't really know. I don't know if that was proper or not. So, okay. Read that part. Also, that wasn't Freedman. I thought that was Fritz. Didn't Fritz, who works for a different firm, file that? Okay. These tactics raise serious concerns, given Mr. Freedman's conduct to date, of efforts to improperly influence the jury pool by making misleading public statements about testimony, evidence, and the state of discovery. Which, like this, again, I have no sympathy for this, because she went to the New York Times and got her cherry-picked story out there to God and everyone, because the New York Times removed the monetization from it, not the monetization, but the paywall for it. So God and everyone could see that, right? So that's fine. That's fine to taint any jury pool that way, knowing that she was going to file a lawsuit because she did quickly after. That's fine, right? So I don't have any sympathy for her. As far as the law goes, I don't know if they're going to award or grant the sanctions or not. Like, maybe they will. Maybe. But from a person standpoint, just like a bystander, a layperson standpoint, I don't give a shit. She took her shots, okay? And I hate the way that she gamed the system. So she'll never have to like own the consequences of her actions because of the litigation privilege and all that. So I don't really have any sympathy for her because I think she's lying. All right. Sanctions are necessary and appropriate to address Mr. Freedman's infractions and to prohibit further efforts to engage in a public relations strategy designed to malign Ms. Lively's character and credibility. For the reasons described herein, the court should hold that Mr. Freedman violated Rule 3.6 and the order and imposed sanctions under Rule 16F, including by admonishing him against making any future statements attacking the character, credibility, or reputation of Ms. Lively, Mr. Reynolds, and any other party or witness in this matter. And that's where I'm kind of saying some of these things that he said, which, as an outsider, like, I think it's hilarious. Like the Madison Square Garden thing. Yeah, I think it's hilarious. But if I were the client, I think I would be a little upset about that, because if the judge does grant this and he is admonished for making these statements, it could look bad for them. So that's kind of where I'm not saying like Bryan Freedman's terrible. I hate it. No, I don't. I don't really know. I couldn't tell you because I don't have any comparison as to like whether Bryan Freedman's strategy as far as PR in this case is like what a lot of other good lawyers would do. I have no idea. So. But what I am saying is I can see both sides of that argument to where somebody might say, I don't think he should have said that. So I just want to be kind of reasonable in that regard. I don't have any dislike for Bryan Freedman or anything like that. But being at this point with this, motion, it's not great. It's not great because they can just use it to make them look bad. You know what I mean? So I don't know. All right. Okay. We're going to skip the background stuff about the hearing and the like what the judge ruled as far as what they can say in the press and all that. On February 3rd was when that happened. I have the whole transcript out there somewhere. You can find it on the post tab of my YouTube channel. All right. After the order, Mr. Freedman repeatedly published statements attacking Ms. Lively's credibility, character, and reputation. One sec. Sorry, I had to fix something real quick. Okay. Since the court issued its Rule 3.6 order, Mr. Freedman has habitually made violative statements to the press attacking Ms. Lively's credibility, character, and reputation. The following list of written press statements and interviews is intended only as a sample of such statements, exemplifying Mr. Freedman's most egregious abuses. The content of these statements is discussed further below. Right. On February 5th, he gave a 10-minute interview on the podcast Two Angry Men with TMZ, in which Mr. Freedman predicted Ms. Lively and Mr. Reynolds were going to probably take some legal actions that are beyond the bounds of decency, and we'll see if they can try to avoid a deposition. Well, it certainly seems to have panned out that way, in my opinion. So, all right. On February 18th, Mr. Freedman gave a 30-minute interview on the podcast hosted by his former client, Billy Bush, in which, in reference to the parties in this case, he said, "Documents don't lie, people do." Really? You're bothered by that? Really? Okay. And further cautioned anyone who might be inclined to credit Ms. Lively's allegations that I wouldn't want to be on the wrong side of history here. And this is kind of a weak one, in my opinion. So that one I think it's kind of stupid for them to include that here, but okay. On February 19th, 2025, Mr. Freedman responded to the filing of Ms. Lively's amended complaint in a press statement to TMZ. One second. Okay. In which he asserted that Ms. Lively's claims are false, filled with unsubstantial hearsay of unnamed persons who are clearly no longer willing to come forward or publicly support her. Well, where's the lie again? And lacking actual evidence, as documents do not lie and people do. Dude, again, where is the lie? On March 19th, Mr. Freedman gave a press statement to People magazine where he described Mr. Reynolds' motion to dismiss, which was subsequently granted in full, as arrogant, and Mr. Reynolds as someone who believes that bullying is acceptable, alongside his false insistence that Mr. Reynolds was publicly documented to be a key player whose fingerprints have been all over the smear campaign against Justin and the Wayfarer team since day one. And there's no ruling to the contrary on that. That doesn't mean that he didn't do what they say he did. There was nothing that said, like, this definitely didn't happen. You know what I mean? But I don't know if he's supposed to be saying stuff like that to the press, to be honest. So I don't know how this is going to go for him. But I hope it goes in his favor. You know what I mean? I hope they don't sanction him, obviously. All right. On March 20th, Mr. Freedman gave a press statement to TMZ wherein he accused Ms. Lively's motion to dismiss, which was subsequently granted in full, of attempting to... Well, that's actually just not true, is it? Well, actually, it was. It was. Because some of it was dismissed with prejudice, some of it was without. So it was granted in full, I guess. Okay. Of attempting to cover up for the self-concocted disaster she initiated, and further smeared Ms. Lively as being a privileged elite whose motion to dismiss twisted and curated the law to fit her personal agenda, and one of the most abhorrent examples of abusing our legal system. Are you just like laying out everything that everyone's been thinking here? What this document, I feel like, is perhaps not going to do what you think it's... Okay. You're just like pointing to everything he's ever said about her that kind of like explains why the public doesn't like her. But weird move, but okay. All right. On April 4th, Mr. Freedman gave a press statement to TMZ in which he accused Ms. Lively of attempting to divert the public's attention from the receipts, the actual documents, video footage, and additional evidence, which Mr. Freedman asserted made it irrefutable that there was no sexual harassment, that Ms. Lively's own conduct, rather than the retaliation campaign she alleged. Well, the retaliation campaign is imaginary. So we can go ahead and strike that out, but okay. Was responsible for the organic backlash that she received, and that Ms. Lively does not need discovery to find out who smeared her, just a mirror will do. It's true. Ms. Lively's retaliation campaign, this smear campaign she's alleging, is like an episode of Danny Phantom or something. It's stupid as fuck. I mean, she thinks these people paid me. to talk shit about her. When I sit here and I read these documents and I tell you exactly what I think. And right now, it's because her lawyers are writing every negative thing about her in one single document and listing them out for me. It is not helping the public perception. I'm just saying. Bryan Freedman, I didn't even see Bryan Freedman say some of this stuff. They're doing it. They're putting it in front of my face. Like, what the hell? All right. On April 4th, 2025, Mr. Freedman gave a press statement to People magazine in which Mr. Freedman characterized Ms. Lively as belonging to a circle of Hollywood elites seeking to advance false and harmful claims and block access to the court system and weaken our nation's constitution to service those who are in position of power. Again, you're not going to get any sympathy from me because I think everything that he's saying is true. So, on May 8th, Mr. Freedman gave a press statement to People magazine wherein Mr. Freedman proposed holding Ms. Lively's deposition at Madison Square Garden and to sell tickets or stream it. What was the last part of that statement, guys? You didn't want to give a direct quote on that one? Why is that? On June 10th, 2025, in a 5-minute interview with TMZ, Mr. Freedman proclaimed Ms. Lively is afraid of the truth, said we're going to see if she's going to appear at that deposition or not, and contrasted Ms. Lively's character with that of his clients, accusing her of filing a lawsuit, which accused some very good people of a smear campaign and accused a terrific young man of sexual harassment. Okay, well, that part right there, dude, like, again, you're allowed to defend your client. He's just speaking, this part, he's more so just speaking highly of his client, which I think he should be able to do. That's just my personal opinion, though. I don't know. All right. On June 11th, in a 50-minute interview on a podcast hosted by his former client, Megyn Kelly, Ms. Kelly opened the podcast by conveying that Mr. Freedman is waging war against Blake Lively, who he believes is not a good person, and later referred to Ms. Lively as having the reputation for being a bitch. Well, at least we're actually saying what she said this time about her reputation and not just calling her a bitch straight up. But, again, where's the lie? An assertion which Mr. Freedman endorsed a lengthy discussion of Ms. Lively's character, noting that Ms. Lively appeared to him to be a narcissist who could not accept, in his view, how she's behaved and how she's treated reporters and how she's treated people and how she's treated individuals and how she's treated waiting staff and others, and saying it's not okay. We don't like you. Well, thanks for the trip down memory lane. But Megyn Kelly is allowed to say whatever the fuck Megyn Kelly wants. So I enjoyed that. Thank you very much for including it. Like, what the hell? I'm not going to do the legal standard here, guys. We're going to skip that. Mr. Freedman has violated Rule 3.6 in this court's order. Okay. In the 5 months since Mr. Freedman told the court he wants to comply with Rule 3.6 and that he certainly would stipulate to the professional rules of conduct, he has engaged in a press tour designed to damage Ms. Lively's character and credibility. Specifically, Mr. Freedman has and continues to perpetuate 4 themes designed to undermine Ms. Lively's credibility, character, and reputation. So we already read those above. I'm not going to go through all that again. Each of these myths, what myths? I mean, you could say they're opinions. They're not myths. That's certainly not true. Each of these myths, standing alone, would have a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing the adjudication of Ms. Lively's claims, and when taken together, they reveal Mr. Freedman's willful efforts to use the court of public opinion to taint the jury pool. Again, these myths, that doesn't have the bite that I think they thought it would when they wrote it here, because this is clearly a matter of opinion. A person of bad character, again, that's a matter of opinion. A privileged elite and a bully who's manipulating the justice system, well, that's just a fact, in my opinion. So, no, it's not literally a fact. Please don't sue me. I know she's probably thinking about it. All right. Is this PR? This sounds like PR. It really does. It really does, dude. All right. This court should impose sanctions here because Mr. Freedman's statements pose a significant risk of tainting the jury pool with deceptive, corrosive, and untrue statements cloaked with an illusion of loyalty and integrity. So they're not deceptive. They're not deceptive. If you're deceiving somebody, you're saying something that's not true, right? And again, most of this is a matter of opinion. And untrue statements. Again, where's the proof that these are untrue statements? I don't see any evidence of sexual harassment, if you ask me, but it certainly hasn't been proven in court. Okay. Mr. Freedman violated Rule 3.6 by calling Ms. Lively a liar who is afraid of the truth. All right. Okay. He has repeatedly suggested that Miss Lively was likely to dodge her deposition, or that Miss Lively's refusal to agree to an immediate public inquisition by Mr. Freedman in Madison Square Garden suggested that she had something to hide. Okay. Mr. Freedman violated Rule 3.6 by attacking Miss Lively as a person of poor character in contrast with the good character of his clients. So fucking what? Mr. Freedman violated New York Rule 3.6 by claiming that the source of the retaliation campaign Miss Lively has challenged is an organic response to Miss Lively's poor reputation and character. Well, we're kind of seeing that play out, aren't we? The organic response to Miss Lively's poor reputation and character, because now you're trying to attack 107 people online who don't like your client, and you're getting embarrassed with all these motions that are saying, hey, this is why I don't like her. I figured this out by myself. This is where I found my information, and this is why I don't believe her story. So really, I don't have a lot of sympathy for that. Like, you certainly don't have to listen to people online who are saying bad things about you, as long as they're not harassing you. And by harassing, I don't mean saying bad things about someone. That is not harassment. Okay, harassment, if you're harassing someone, you're communicating with them in a way they don't want, or you're bothering them in a way they don't want. This talking about her online and saying you don't believe her story, that is not harassment. That's public discourse on a high-interest public case. Mr. Freedman violated Rule 3.6 by asserting that Mr. Reynolds' SNL appearance makes him a person of poor character and renders Miss Lively's claims not credible. Okay. Mr. Freedman has distorted a seconds-long appearance by Mr. Reynolds on SNL, in which Mr. Reynolds made a one-sentence reference to the incessant publicity prompted by this litigation, as an inference that Miss Lively must be lying about her allegations. Well, that's not exactly what he said with that, is it? Did he say, like, that joke means she's lying? I don't know. Makes him a person of poor character and renders Miss Lively's claims not credible. Okay, well, maybe I guess he did suggest that. I had to think about that for a second. Fair enough. Shortly after the SNL appearance, Mr. Freedman stated that he is unaware of anybody, frankly, whose wife has been sexually harassed, and has made jokes about that type of situation, insinuating Mr. Reynolds' comment renders Miss Lively's sexual harassment and retaliation claims false. I don't know, man. I don't think this is too out of bounds, to be honest. That's just me. I think they're doing a lot with that statement that they don't need to do with it, you know? Following the motion to dismiss, he said, Mr. Reynolds can appear on as many sketch shows as he wants and feebly try to make light of his current situation, but we will not stop until he is held accountable for his actions. That, again, I don't think that is a statement that he should really be getting in trouble for, but that's just me. All right. The court should sanction Mr. Freedman for violating Rule 3.6 in the court's order. Sanctions are appropriate under 16F. All right. Although Ms. Lively seeks only a public admonishment and an award of costs and fees at this time, Ms. Lively reserves all rights to seek appropriate remedial instructions prior to trial, as well as to seek additional sanctions in the event Mr. Freedman continues to violate Rule 3.6, including but not limited to revocation of Mr. Freedman's pro hoc vice admission. Okay. Revoking, so they're talking about this case, revoking an attorney's pro hoc vice admission for repeated failures to obey court orders. Indeed, there is serious reason for concern as depositions and document discovery continue that Mr. Freedman will spend the next 8 months seeking to undermine or manipulate the material exchanged in discovery to litigate this case in the court of public opinion, prejudicing any further jury before the parties are able to make their respective cases in court. Mr. Freedman's plea to the people that'll be the jurors, that hopefully they'll be able to see the sky is blue, contrary to Ms. Lively's supposed interpretation, demonstrates his intention and willingness to do just that. Ms. Lively respectfully urges the court to police these boundaries before irreparable damage is done. Okay. Sanctions are warranted for Mr. Freedman's violation of the New York Rule 3.6 order under the court's inherent power. Okay. The court may also sanction of Mr. Freedman under its inherent power in tandem with or in addition to any sanctions imposed under Rule 16F. Okay. First, the court's order was explicit, and there was no suggestion that Mr. Freedman misread or misunderstood it. Okay. Mr. Freedman happily agreed to be bound by Rule 3.6 and expressed no confusion as to what compliance entailed. Second, the court can conclude that Mr. Freedman's conduct is willful because it has been continuing for several months and is part of a pattern of noncompliance. Okay. For the reasons stated above, the court should impose sanctions against Mr. Freedman in the form of findings that he has violated the Rule 3.6 order, sorry, an admonishment against future violations, in addition to an award of costs and attorney fees. Should the court conclude that an award of fees and costs is appropriate, Ms. Lively respectfully requests that the court set a briefing schedule for the calculation of that award. Okay. That's all we really got here. So I don't agree with a lot of what they said there, obviously. As far as some of his statements, like the Madison Square Garden thing and all that, I don't know. They really it sounds like they really eventually want to get rid of him. Obviously, I thought they were trying to do that with trying to make him a fact witness with that subpoena, which obviously didn't work out. So I don't know. There's some of this stuff I am a little concerned, because I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know if those are sanctionable statements. We'll have to ask Omar, but he's been really busy lately working on a case. So unfortunately, he hasn't been able to be around as much, but I'll see what we can do about that. But right now I got to go because, like I said, I'm out of town and I got a train to catch in a little bit. So appreciate you guys. Thanks for sticking around. And I will, tomorrow I'm out tomorrow, but maybe tomorrow night or something, I'll be back. So thanks everyone. Bye.